Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Road to the Ashes here on SEN and also Talk Sport all the way over there in the UK. I'm Simon O'Donnell, pleasure to be sitting here in the SEN studios and joined by my co-host Steve Harmison all the way over there in the UK. We're here thanks to Australian-made. Look for the green and gold kangaroo. And I tell you what, we've got an exciting day today, Harmy, let me tell you, because the boss is coming on. Adam Gilchrist, a man who's had a wonderful Ashes campaigns over the journey, and we can't wait to speak to him a little later on. So exciting for both of us and everyone joining our show for the third time. Welcome to you.
Yeah, good morning, good evening, Simon. It's been an interesting 24 hours for me. We've had a little bit of Aussie bashing. There's a whole host of 05 lads back together last night, along with the, I think, half of the 03 rugby team, which won the World Cup, I think, in Sydney in 2003. I keep saying I think because not many Australians remember what happened in all them years ago, but it was a great night and everyone back together was some stories to be told.
Mate, the great thing about technology is just explaining to our listeners is I'm seeing you in the UK, and when you sat down and I'm looking at the little square on the computer, I thought, geez, the big man looks red as if he's possibly got up, put the joggers on and gone for a 10K, but that's not the case.
No, the big lad's just got up and he's been at a few from the night before. I'm not gonna argue with you. The modern technology is, the way the world has gone. You can have conversations around the world now. And unfortunately, because of, webcams and laptops, you can see just how much somebody's had the night before. So, no, to be fair, last night was a great night. Seeing Duncan Fletcher for the first time in probably 15 years. He flew in from Cape Town for the evening. I probably spoke to him more last night than I did in 8 years playing for him. And I actually definitely seen him smile more last night than I've ever seen Duncan Fletcher in all the years he was coach of England. But no, it was everybody was back apart from KP and Andrew Flintoff, and we had a great night.
So tell us some of the members of the team. And over here, we have a football competition where you give votes 3, 2, 1. The best player gets 3, second best 2, the third best 1. Who was the best player on the ground amongst the English victors there at dinner last night?
Well, some people haven't changed. So Sir Andrew Strauss, he had a little chat with the audience along with Duncan Fletcher. So Fletcher's definitely changed because he smiles more now than he's ever smiled in his entire life. Strauss has not looked any different to when he was playing. He's just lost a bit of hair. Me and Hoggard, we definitely have changed. Andrew Flintoff has probably lost about 5-6 stone since he finished playing cricket, and me and Hoggy have definitely found it. The big lads have got bigger. So Simon Jones looks $1 million. He hasn't changed much, and Paul Collins was recovering from an Achilles operation. But the majority of the lads still look quite well. They still look as though they're still training and doing a bit. But the bowlers look bigger. As you know, Simon, when you stop bowling, you tend to put a bit of weight on. And me and Hoggy, probably the only ones at level 1. I think if you're looking at 3 who haven't changed much and still look at their sort of fighting weight and fighting best. Unfortunately, me and Hoggy have enjoyed our dinners.
Oh, keep enjoying them too. So you should. And I suppose the key ingredient from that is you would have been a lot of discussion about where everything sits leading into June 16 when the first ball of this Ashes series will be bowled at Edgbaston. And it hasn't all been good news for the English team or squad during the week with Jofra Archer, who I desperately want him to play in the series. He's such a dynamic performer, such a dynamic bowler. Things don't look good for him.
No, I think watch the space on Jofra. I think there's been a plan. I don't know this for a fact because obviously I'm not inside the England camp, but I think there's a plan with Jofra on how he gets to June 16. I still wouldn't play him in the first Test match. I've never had the opinion that I think Jofra plays in the first Test match because of his road to recovery, his IPL journey, and when he comes back from the IPL with no first-class cricket in between. That would be a big ask to go in 16th of June, first red ball game in the best part of 2 years. So it's good that he's come back now. Fingers crossed he's, from an English point of view, he's okay-ish, and he goes into the Ireland Test match. A little bit like Australia have got the World Test Championship, and there's a lot of opinion, whether it's right or wrong, not to play a warm-up game before it. Australia have got the World Test Championship against India. England have got the Test match against Ireland. Fully expect Jofra Archer to play against Ireland, and then possibly ready for the second Test match when he's given his body a chance to go through a 5-day game or a longer format game and then come back. So I don't think it's all bad news for Jofra. We've seen him last week play for the Mumbai Indians. He was bowling 95 mile an hour. And you know yourself as a bowler, Simon, if you're bowling 95 mile an hour, things are working okay in your body. So I just think I think this is a planned coming home that this early, and fingers crossed for the series that he's okay, because we all want the biggest thing I've always wanted from this series is that both teams are at their fighting best. Both teams are fully fit, because if they are, it's going to be a magnificent series. Yeah,
agreed. And let's hope that is just a management issue with Jofra Archer, because he's an integral part of that bowling lineup for England. You talk about the build-up, and the Aussies got the World Test Championship played at the Oval pre the first Ashes Test match. They've chosen not to play any warm-up games. You touched on that, Harmy, and we touched on it last week that the surface is different over there. It takes a little bit of getting used to, coming from Australian conditions to English conditions, albeit the guys just play around the world pretty much. It appears seamlessly these days. Do you think that's a mistake? Do you think that's something the Aussies should be doing, is playing some warm-up cricket just to hone things in, to get them 100% before their World Test Championship and then the Ashes?
I think so. I think to get used to English conditions, definitely for one or two. They're an experienced squad, Australia. The one or two that you worry about, and it's not a case of worrying about, it's just, as I know from myself, it's from previous Ashes tours, especially the one in 06-07, if you don't have the best preparation, if you don't go and hit the ground running with overs under your belt, then you're trying to play catch-up in a pressurised situation. So when that Mitchell Starc, a big lad, only played one Test match here in 2019, he would be somebody that you'd think probably could do with a game, where Pat Cummins, there's not a great deal can go wrong with that bowling action. It really is. It's mechanic. It's perfect. It's a beautiful bowling action. Hazelwood's he's not playing, but he's been in and around IPL and had a bit of cricket. And a lot of the batters are actually playing cricket at the minute. So whether they're in first-class cricket in England or they're playing in the IPL. So the only one I'd look at was probably Mitchell Starc, that his volume of overs probably could have done with a game. The rest, it's an experience. It's where the game is now. It's where the world is. England got to New Zealand and cancelled they had 2-day games. And I was there for both of them in Hamilton. And after this sort of second day of the first one, you could see England were ready. They were ready for a game, for a Test match. It was like, rack it off. Let's go and have a game of golf. Let's go and have some good time together and sort of release the pressure just before everything starts. So I think there's pros and cons on yes, play or don't play. But gone are the days. Neil Manthorpe, our great friend out in South Africa, he reminded me that the Donald Bradman team in 1947 came over on the boat and they played 12 first-class matches before the first Test. But yeah, that's just that times have changed.
Yes, times have changed. It's interesting. I think the biggest challenge going from Australian conditions or subcontinental conditions to England is the change in length. And you talk on Pat Cummins and how good his action is. Mitchell Starc swings the ball, but the ball will be bowled half a metre to a metre further up in your conditions than it is at home. And that's not something that just changes automatically. I mean, getting that radar in is a difficult thing to do. And I suppose they're putting a lot of emphasis on the way they prepare for their matches. They train so well and they're so specific about what they do that they can literally just reset the computer, if you like, and say we're now in England and the release of the ball is coming in a different position. We know that, and we only need a short period of time to get that right.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. And coupled with the fact that the way England have played, 10 test match wins in 12, you'd have thought you'd won a game of cricket because these are the lengths we're trying to hit. This is the adjustments we're trying to make. And also, England are coming at us. So we want to make sure that when we get to June 16, we get to Edgbaston, all of a sudden by lunchtime, we're bowling the wrong length. We're bowling the wrong line. And we're going at 7.5 and over because England will be trying to do that. And that's probably why and it's not a case of playing 3-4 day games or playing 12 first-class matches like Donald Bradman's done. It is a case of, right, can we make sure that we nail our lengths, that by lunchtime on day one, we are not behind the 8 ball and putting ourselves under even more pressure by our own doing, because our own doing is we're not going to play a first-class match. You could do what England done. We can set up a 4-day game, get 2 days in. Nah, we're done, boys. That's it. Enough. Let's go and play golf. Let's go and get ready for the Ashes. But give yourself the option.
Yeah, it just adds another, I suppose, a sense of intrigue, another section of it leading into Edgbaston and what may happen there in that first test match. Harmy, we're going to take a bit of a break. Adam Gilchrist is going to join us shortly, and I'd like to also touch on a little later on just where everyone's at within county cricket and how they're performing at the moment. I wonder if the Aussies have missed a trick with Michael Nessa. He's over there performing really well in county cricket. Some of the batters, Marnus Labuschagne, Steve Smith, are starting to get their siders in as well prior to this Ashes series. We'll take a break. Adam Gilchrist coming up shortly. This is Road to the Ashes. Thanks to Australian Made. Look for the green and gold kangaroo. Welcome back to Road to the Ashes. Simon O'Donnell here at SEN Talk Sport over in the UK. Steve Harmison joining us from the other side of the world. Thanks to Australian Made. Look for the green and gold kangaroo. He's not on the other side of the world. He's firmly ensconced here in Australia. But I tell you what, he loved travelling to the other side of the world sometimes to play against the old foe. And I talk of Adam Gilchrist, who had a fantastic Ashes career during his journey as an Australian Test cricketer. And we're lucky enough that he joins us on Road to the Ashes. And I might add, is also an Australian-made ambassador. We'll talk about that a little later on because we've got some Ashes to talk with him first and foremost. Gilly, welcome to Road to the Ashes. Great to have you on board.
Cheers, Simon. Harmy, how are you both? Great to see you. Good to be chatting about, both things that we're chatting about. Obviously the Ashes and then the Australian Made campaign. It's always, as you said, Simon, in the intro, any Aussie loves getting over to the UK at any stage. And whether it's representing Australia in a sporting field or the business community that we're very proud of, it's nice to intertwine the two. But huge anticipation about what's coming up ahead for everyone. I'm sure it's the same over there, Harmy.
We just chatted earlier, Gilly, about the build-up for the Australians. They've chosen sort of no warm-up games. They go straight into their World Test Championship and then into the first Test match. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a bit of a high-risk policy from them, given they did the same, didn't they, in India? And that came unstuck very early. But I think notwithstanding the conditions in India were pretty delicate, to say the least, in the first few Test matches. So, maybe pre-tour games might not have helped them anyway. But I think There's not a lot of time, is there, between the World Test Championship and the first test at Edgbaston? No. Is that right? There probably wouldn't be time to whack a game in there anyway, I don't think, without adding to the workload. So, I don't know. All I think you can do is sit back and trust the judgment. It's a pretty experienced setup there. The leaders of the group, they know the workloads and the cricket that they've played. There's a few key players over there already acclimatising by way of county cricket, which is going to help them out. And then I guess it falls back more to the bowling workload and what guys want to do. But I'm not too bothered. There's a whole bunch of, a number of Ashes contenders, I suppose, for England that are in the IPL that will lead them right up very close to the series. So in this day and age, it's hard to comment coming from another era as to what is needed, required or acceptable in this day and age, given the cricket they're playing. And clearly the current players feel that's the best way to go. So I'm a bit reserved in trying to judge that just at the moment and be able to advise what's best or what's not. So just trust them, go with it, and get stuck into it. And for their sake, I hope it goes well.
Interesting that listening to you talk on the, in a way, a little bit of the recipe for success. Is it playing a game or not? One of the big contributors, I thought, in your period of Ashes cricket and your career was stability amongst that 11 to probably 14 guys. It was the same faces for about 10 years, and I felt stability was such a important ingredient to the success of your period playing Test cricket. Am I fair in saying that? And do you think that's still relevant and important now?
I do. I can only speak from experience, as the three of us can from previous times. But I do think if you can get stability and continuity in a core group of players, I mean, that means a number of things, doesn't it? It means that the team must be doing reasonably well, or at least, the lion's share of the players are doing well enough to retain their spot in the team, consistency of selection. So, and over a long period of time, that means the team results are probably going to be pretty decent. And it brings also that IP, if you like, or that knowledge and intellect, that cricket intellect that has been built up over that period of time as you march on towards a destination together. And I think, for the last 18 months or so, this Ashes has been the destination. And India was certainly something that Australian team would love to have achieved a victory in, and they sort of ended up getting reasonably close. But then, the Ashes comes around, and it's always spoken about a long time out about management of bowlers and management of players and workloads. And I'm sure it's a bit the same in the England camp. I mean, look at the way Jofra has been treated over a long period of time in the hope that he can come up for this series and the like, even the management of the older guys, Brody and Jimmy. There's always that bigger picture at the end of the day that's the carrot dangling there. So the management of players, which then allows consistency of selection over a fair period of time, I think it's pretty important. And I think England now, probably the style of cricket they've been playing and that regime of, what is it now, 12 to 18 months, they're probably biggest headache simply working out who to leave out. They've got quite the selection to pick from if they're all fully fit. Whereas Australia's set up, I probably think the 11 is close to picking itself, and there's not a lot of competition banging the door down there to force guys out. So, the 11 that they have, I think if they're fully fit, will be very, very competitive. They're so evenly matched, these teams.
Yeah, I agree. I look at the Australian side and I think Australia have probably got the best 11. I think England have got the bigger depth. Even more so, they're playing in England, so they're going to have even more to pick from. And 5 test matches in 6.5 weeks. It's crazy schedule. That might just work in England's favour because the depth they've got. But if I ask you, Gilly, about what does the Ashes mean? Growing up, I remember my first ever overseas in Durham I was 17-year-old, was David Boone. And whenever I think of the Ashes, I just think Booney getting off a plane, drinking ridiculous amounts of lager, hundreds in the early part of a series. I have only ever seen Booney on the telly scoring hundreds. So to play with him was just like a dream come true. But if I've asked you what the Ashes means, what does it mean to Adam Gilchrist growing up?
Yeah, that look, it meant everything. My first Ashes test, Harmy, was 2001 at Edgbaston, which I think was about my 12th or 11th or 12th test match of my career, but it was my first one against your lot. And I was as nervous that morning as I was thinking back to my actual test debut. I think that you knew that you were entering that group of players that had the opportunity to join the Ashes history. So that's clearly, to me, what it meant. I remember, watching on eagerly in '89. I mean, I watched Ashes series prior to that, but both home and abroad. But was over there in 1989 as a youngster, just playing for a club team and watching that close range. The question marks cast over that group of players of the Aussies, and then seeing them do what they did. And I remember the sort of bit of an iconic shot of them. I think it was Booney did he sweep the winning runs at Old Trafford to secure the Ashes? And they're all up on the balcony. It's not the Lord's balcony, but it was up at the Old Trafford, the balcony there. And then a few years later, I was back with an Australian under-19 team, and all we wanted to do was recreate that sort of image as an under-19 unit. So it sort of filtered into the system a little bit, and generations pass it on down. So that era of players were a bunch of my idols, as were the generation before, Lily Marsh, and all those guys, AB. So, yeah, it gets in your blood, it gets in your system, and it seems like every Ashes series now grows and grows and grows, and you're right. This is even more highly anticipated. I think before 2005, and Harmy, you can tell me if this is right or wrong, but I just wondered whether the public, the English cricketing public, and even you guys perhaps to an extent, didn't quite think that was going to be the series that you would challenge us, or not challenge us, but actually beat us. Maybe it was 18 months early and it was going to be later on you did it, but so maybe that anticipation wasn't quite there. But mind you, the spell you bowled to punter and taking his cheekbone out that first morning at Lord's, I think that set the tone for mine for what was clearly one of the great series. So whereas this time it is truly, I reckon, a flip of the coin at the moment. Couple of selections, couple of injuries, couple of good tosses, whatever. It really is a fine line.
Yeah, I agree. I think when you look at the 2005, we come on to 2005, I always describe that one as, I thought Australia were more nervous than what England were. I thought going into that series, Australia had the best players in the world. But at the time, I think we were the best team in the world because of what the journey we had been on for 18 months. And I actually think it's very similar to the current series that's coming up. And the reason why I always said that I thought you were more nervous than what we were, Ricky never gets hit in the head. The ball that hit Langer, the ball that hit Alfie on the arm, that's his favourite shot, just flicking it down the fine leg. And Big Matty Hayden, he doesn't ever get hit on the head. And that happened all in the first 6 overs of the test. I think the anticipation of that, coupled with the fact that the pressure of the Ashes, I still think we felt our best chance was in England, not in Australia. And I think that's the same again. I think this team's best chance from an England point of view is to win in England, not in Australia. But I just want to ask you about the 05 and about characters in the 05. Someone like Warney, Shane Warne. We've all seen what he was like, but we want to know what he was like when he was under pressure. What was he like at Edgbaston when Ponner mentioned, when he said them immortal words for an Englishman, we'll bowl first on that Edgbaston flat one. What was Warney like in the dressing room, and what was Warney like on the field around that situation?
I asked what Warney was like under pressure. I reckon that series, that summer, the UK summer, I don't know if he could have been under much more pressure. He was well documented and he's written about it and had spoken about it. He was going basically through a marriage breakup, a separation, a profile scenario. He was going through a whole lot of other stuff. He was out there in the field of battle. It always seemed like we were under siege, as you mentioned, Harmy, from the first 6 overs. I tell you, I'll go back a year or 9 months to to the Champions League, Champions Trophy final, semi-final, where you, mate, you bowled to us there and you hit me in the forearm there. And that was a seed planted in my mind of uncertainty of, oh dear, this is going to be game on next year, because that hostile spell you bowled that day forever remained in my mind. So it's amazing what can happen a long way out from a series, and how quickly or how well people can process stuff and move it away and disperse with it, or if it lingers. But what you saw Warnie under immense pressure there, and what did he get? 40 wickets and 350 runs. He was different league. Every time we were under pressure, it seemed like he was the go-to man, whether it was with getting the wickets, or trying to do a counter punch with the bat at the end, because a few of us at the top had left too many runs out there. So his personality, let me just make sure it didn't seem to change a bit. Warnie could be everything going his way. Life could have been perfect, but he still could have found something to whinge about and complain about, and something going wrong. And yet, in the flip of a coin or a blink of an eye, he can be the most positive, happy bloke ever. If someone goes, oh, but Warnie, remember, it's a really bad day for you, but that function's on, right? And it could be good fun. Oh, yeah, right, let's go. The card. Oh, yeah, got blackjack. Yeah. So he can go up and down like a yo-yo, but you knew that once it was time to switch on, he was going to give it everything. And he probably loved being down or on the back foot against England more than anyone else in the cricketing world, and that usually produced the best. And, yeah, a lot of you guys drew that out of him. A few new faces like KP coming out too, taking him on. So that enhanced it. And, I thought Punter was right up there too under that series. He played a couple of really important knocks. But that was probably one thing. We probably just left Warnie going a bit lone wolf. It wasn't enough of us to really build a tapestry of work around him to get the job done in the end.
Gilly, fascinating to listen to you and Harmy talking about those series and the little bits that contributed, some of them, 6 months prior to the series starting, with Harmy hitting you on a forearm. It was an extraordinary 18 months that then took place. England win that series 2-1. We see the double-decker buses going through the West End of London. But the next series in Australia, it looked like you were playing a completely different team. What was the turnaround?
I think a few things, and I love that. I got off the plane in 2005 at the start of that tour, and in a press conference said, look, I don't want to be part of the team that hands the Ashes back to England after 18 years. And there I was sitting on the balcony at the Oval late afternoon in September, watching the celebrations begin, seeing bloody grown men crying out in the grandstand because, young men or even them with their kids hadn't seen that for so long, and then the players rightly celebrating, and people might say carrying on, but we had a real solid hit out in the change rooms, both teams together. The level of respect there at the end of that series was quite phenomenal, really. I think everyone knew they'd been involved in something really special, and I think that's what the first step for us. We were able to sit there and sort of look it in the eye, because it had been a long, tough series. And for the first time in our series, in our generation, or that core group of, say, 4 or 5 years of cricketers together, it felt like we had a few little fractures appearing, and the foundations were just quivering a bit. And I think the fact that we sat there and sort of looked it in the eye, didn't enjoy it, but embraced the fact of we've just been part of a pretty historic moment. So you knew that. So that was a start. We then came back, and then John Buchanan, I think, felt like he detected these little sort of fractures in our foundation. So he took us away on a boot camp, much to everyone, none the least Warnie's disappointment. But it was just, without overcomplicating, I guess it was, sort of leader or teamwork 101. Let's go away and do the team building exercises. And it was the old SAS military style, which I think England might have been put through once or twice since, or certainly at some point I remember seeing it, Harmy. But it was the good old fashioned, bust them physically, or challenged them physically, challenged them mentally, challenged them around mateship and teamwork and all that. And it was a fascinating week, and we got a lot out of it in the end, except Warney would never have agreed with that. But it was amazing when we did play in that Ashes series. I think what Buck knew, the skeleton was still there. We needed to pull all the flesh back, get the skeleton right and in alignment again, and then add the fleshy bits through a shared experience. And we could have sat in a boardroom and written up what is teamwork, trust, communication and all that sort of stuff. But the fact that we went through a shared experience, a bloody tough one, eventually in Adelaide, in warm-up on day 5, that's where we all suddenly found out that Shane Warne was on the boot camp, and he got up and gave us one almighty rev-up speech about belief and what we can do together. And he jumped on the back, believe it or not, of what John Buchanan was saying. And it was unbelievable to see the two of them in unison, but a rare time. But, of course, he came out and bowled us to set up a victory as we chased down the run. So I think that was probably it. Like you said, Harmy, leading into 05, the wave of momentum that you guys had, Pakistan, 4, I think it was, and just the belief and Varney's, everyone was on board with Varney and Duncan Fletcher, and you're all so hungry. I think what we were able to do is get some momentum up after that disappointment, and we could have gone one of two ways. We could have really crumbled after 05 and that being the end of that group, or I thought John Buchanan showed some strong leadership and foresight in rebuilding it, and we had one last go and we got it right by the end of Sydney, and then we farewelled some absolute legends.
Yeah, from an England point of view, we did crumble after 05 because we fell apart as a group. And the big part was we went to India not long after that, and we made 2 changes. We had 2 enforced changes. And one was Marcus Trescothick, and the other one was Simon Jones.
Yep.
They were replaced by 2 all-time greats in Alistair Cook and in Jimmy Anderson. But it wasn't the same. Young guys going in, and then the team that Freddie had to go over to Australia, it was like, that opened up Bus Parade as a group was the worst thing we ever did. We did not want to do that. And it was like we were saying to the management, look, let the guys get, because you mentioned a drink afterwards. Simon, you wouldn't have realised, you could see who had won and who had lost in the dressing room. There's so much level of respect in 05 for what that series was about. And then to go on that Bus Parade before Australia had left, that's what the England players didn't want. We were like, let them get in the air, and while they're in the air, we can have this parade. They might see pictures, but let's not ram it down their throats of what has been an unbelievable series. That didn't need to happen in Australia because we weren't good enough. We just didn't have the team to go over there. But the fact that you did ram it down our throats, you did make sure you knew that you were in the country when we on that Bus Parade. And you mentioned Adelaide not giving up on day 5. And then you went to Perth. And I thought we were still in the game at Perth, and you came out and played. In innings that I am, honestly, Simon, I've said this before, the roof of my mouth was sunburned. I'm standing long off, and I'm saying to Monty, just throw it at his toes. Just dart it in. And Monty's going, I think I can get him. As it's gone over my head for the 4th time that over. I'm going, Mont, just bowl darts. And he's going, no, I can get him. And I'm like, I'm just constantly looking up to the Perth sky, and I would say the roof of my mouth was sunburned. But what about that innings, Gilly? It was unbelievable.
Well, it's funny you say Monty felt optimistic because he got me out. Remember, he got 5 for on day 1.
He did,
like a left arm orthodox getting 5 for at the whacker on day 1. You've got to be kidding me. What's going on? So that tells me surely some of us, if not all of us, were a bit negative of mindset. And he got me out. I reckon I got a duck. He bowled a pretty innocuous little left arm orthodox, and I just propped forward a little bat pad out for a duck. And I remember walking off thinking, if I ever face Monty Panesar again, I'm at least getting caught on the boundary. I'm not getting caught bat padding close. So I sort of parked that in my mind. And fortunately, when I came out to bat that day, you'd remember it, it was 40 degrees.
Yeah, it was red hot.
The beneficiary of you blokes were cooked, literally cooked. Haas and Pup Haas had scored 100. Pup was encroaching on 100. We already had about a 300-run lead, didn't we? So it was, all the weight was on my side in regards to the match situation. But funnily enough, Freddie came on when I walked out to bat, went round the wicket, and I sort of pushed at one, flew through gully. I thought, he's got me again in the gully region, shocked me. But there was no fielder standing there.
Yeah. And
it went down the boundary for 4. And I remember thinking, what? Geez, that's odd. And on reflection, I wonder whether, Freddie's at that stage as captain and was so exhausted and take on so much, and it was so hot, maybe he forgot to really get it right. But next ball he bowled similar, and I actually self-indulgently, I absolutely laced it off the back foot cover drive right out of the middle. And I thought, I've been searching for a ball out of the middle against this mob for 8 test matches now. Yeah. Now that I've found it, I'm going to have some fun. I remember what it feels like now. I'm going to go for it. So, yeah, but we got to 50, and I remember we sent a message back to punter saying, look, we reckon we got him by the scruff of the neck. It's only day 3, but if we absolutely tee it up here, we could get 500 ahead and have another half an hour at him tonight. So we just said, don't run back out to the 12th. Just give us a thumbs up from the change rooms if it's a yes slog, or thumbs down if you want us to see it out. Michael Clark and I were sure we saw a thumbs up. So we went for it. We went for it. And, got him out of the middle. Fortunately, it was hitting with the breeze when Monty was bowling. And then we got to the 100 and then going to the change rooms, and everyone's high fives, hooting and hollering, and a punter's standing there looking at me, and he said, what was that all about? So he had the dirts with me. But anyway, we got. I reckon we got Cookie out that night, which was, or Straussy, sorry. Yeah, got Straussy out that night.
A number of things have come out of this conversation, listening to the two of you reminisce about those 2 wonderful series. But I think we now have a new definition of optimism, particularly the way Harmy put Monty's bowling. I think a 57-ball 100, and Monty still thought he was a chance to get him to throw it up, while Harmy was getting sunburn at long on. I just think that's brilliant stuff.
Wally was perfect. Wally was perfect in his description of Monty. He was perfect. He played one game 51 times, and that's Mont. That was Monty. And you can see these eyes. He thinks it's the greatest idea ever to keep throwing it up in the air. And Adam Gilchrist has hit him for the 4th time for 6 in about 10 balls. And he still thinks it's a good idea. And I think even if you talk to Monty now, he still thinks it's a good idea. But it was a magnificent series. Forget from an England point of view, we got beat 5-0. We didn't have a great side, and we come into that. You mentioned, I was fortunate in my lifetime to play with some of my heroes and play against a lot of my heroes. And to see Glenn, Justin, and the great man Shane Warne, who I didn't know this until somebody had reminded me that I was the last person ever to hit Shane Warne for 4. So as the 8th greatest number 11 of all time when I retired, I was so proud that I won his last boundary. But to see them walk off at the end, for me, that was cricket special. To see him get 700 wickets at Melbourne, that was cricket special. To see Glenn McGrath get 500 at Lords, that was cricket special, because these are unique times and unique ways. But we had some good times, didn't we? That was a great couple of Ashes series that I don't think people will forget. We forget because we got beat 5-0, but we don't forget because of the sort of 2 series. It was brilliant.
Gilly, been great having you along. But before we go, not only do you always freshen up the TV broadcast that we see you here in Australia and the development of you on the telly, the UK are seeing a hell of a lot more of you at the moment, particularly through social media, etc., with the Australian Made campaign. Can you explain a little bit of that to us, your involvement there?
Yeah, look, it's pretty clearly just an encouragement to people in the UK in particular. We've always sort of promoted it here internally within our country to try and support businesses that produce and or manufacture their products here in Australia. So, in a big wide world out there full of exports and imports, obviously there's a little bit of everything to go around, but we're just encouraging people in the UK to consider what we think Australian-made products are reliable, high quality and trustworthy. So that's effectively what Australian-made Week is, and we know there's a lot of expats over there, Aussies, so they'll be on the lookout, dare I say it, for a few Australian-made things. So, that's pretty much the basis of it, boys, and a huge thrill and honour for myself to be asked to be a part of that campaign. Anytime I think anyone anywhere from around the world gets a chance to promote their country and the companies that come from that country, it's certainly something that we're proud to do. So I'll be over there myself at some stage through the summer. So look forward to joining in the festivities.
No one better to be fronting that free trade agreement between Australia and the UK, Gilly, and we wish you all the well with it, and also anyone involved in it, because it's a great opportunity for many businesses here in Australia to showcase what we've got here in this country. Mate, great to have your company on the show today. Enjoy your involvement with Australian Made, and when you get over to the Ashes, I've no doubt we'll see plenty of cuts to the crowd saying, "Oh, that's that bloody Adam Gilchrist, he's back."
Pleasure to chat, boys. And Harmy, you mentioned that last Sydney test. For a lot of us, it was our last Ashes test match. And as we spoke about at the top of the chat here, how significant and special that little trench of all our careers is. So, that was a huge day and a wonderful rivalry between our group and your group, mate. So great to chat. Cheers, Sod, and see you again soon.
Good on you, Gilly. Thanks for that. Well done, Harmy.
I look forward to seeing you when you come over.
No, you don't.
Cheers, bud.
I know you don't mean that, Harmy. I just know you don't mean that. We're going to take a quick break. We need it. We're very excited. More from the road to the Ashes shortly, thanks to Australian Made. Look for the green and gold kangaroo wherever you go. Welcome back to Road to the Ashes on SEN and also Talk Sport over there in the UK, thanks to Australian Made. Look for the green and gold kangaroo. Steve Harmison still with me, as he should be. That was fantastic chat with Gilly, Harmy, and the passion you guys had for that chat, and what passion you would have had back in those days was absolutely brilliant, and you showcased it perfectly talking to the great Adam Gilchrist. Mate, let's talk a little bit about the Aussies and the English that are over there playing county cricket at the moment. And I can't help but think Michael Nessa, last 2 years, has been part of Australian squads nearly wherever they've gone, and he's over in the UK playing at the minute, and he's that sort of bowler, I reckon, is just perfectly suited to UK conditions. He got 7 for 32 against Yorkshire last week and looked to be bowling brilliantly. And I've got a funny feeling the Aussies may rue not having him there at some stage during the campaign. Did you see any of it? What did you think of it?
Yeah, I thought he bowled beautifully. I watched some of the stream over here, and he bowled fantastically well. That's the beauty about, Simon, about what Australia have done. They've got the likes of Michael Nisa, they've got Cameron Bancroft, they've got one or two others that are Peter Hanscom's here if need be, sort of about a wicketkeeper type that they've got it. So Australia aren't coming with 17 players; they're coming with 25. There's a few in this. There's a few in the country that, at the drop of a hat, can get in a car and be in the ground within an hour and a half. So that's what England brings. That's an Ashes tour that comes with it. If you're going to pick 5 seamers, you're probably a backup seamer. Rightly so is Scott Boland, because he's probably bowled the best of the ones that you're not your first choice. So I can understand why Michael Nisa wasn't in the squad, but since he's been here, he's bowled beautifully. He didn't get any wickets in the second innings. He looked as though he was chasing, trying too hard. I think he was 0 for 91 in the second innings, as the wicket had just got flatter and flatter. But his English length and his ability to move the ball laterally through the air, not dissimilar to Jimmy Anderson, was something that I think Australia might look at if, as the series goes on. At this minute in time, England's having horrendous weather problems. It's soaking wet in this country. So, as a surprise, it's cold, it's wet, it's damp. He might come into the equation as the series goes on if Australia talked about there to Gilly about the pool of players that England have got, I think is better than Australia. But Australia's 1 to 11, I think, is better than England's. But the bowlers that are bowling in county cricket and that are playing, Michael Nisa is definitely one of them, which I think probably at some point over the course of the 6 weeks, you'll find himself in the Australian squad. Harmy,
really interesting to see Steve Smith and Ollie Robertson showing their wares for Sussex during the week against Worcester. Steve Smith wasn't out there for long. I thought the decision he got wasn't one of the best umpiring decisions I've ever seen, and I think he made his thoughts on that pretty clear. And Ollie Robinson, that fantastic early season form from him, and he looks fitter. Looks like he's dropped a few Ks.
Yeah, he looks fit, he looks strong, he looks durable. That's the key for Ollie Robinson, it's durability. He bowls at 78, 80 mile an hour, a little bit quicker. And in the past, his lifestyle wasn't the greatest. He admitted that, got himself fit, because the drop-off at 78 mile an hour, not good enough to play Test cricket. But he's now constantly bowling 25 overs at that speed, and he is a handful, especially in English conditions. So from an England fan, that was nice to see. Steve Smith, I thought you were very polite there, Simon. I thought he got a shocker. We come over to Australia and we get it from the baggage handlers the minute we get there, whether we land in Perth or we land in Sydney, and we get hammered. That Gilly's going to belt us everywhere. McGrath's going to knock us over. Warney's going to make us embarrassing. And you're like, yeah, right. So Steve Smith's, 30 runs into his first innings, and an umpire just does a favour for all England supporters and gives him out. It wouldn't hit another set down the leg side, and it probably wouldn't hit another set over the top. But hey-ho, I thought he was very calm in his walk off, because I thought he could have been a lot more. I could have been a bit more of a hissy fit as he walked off the field. But Ollie Robinson is in fine form. One of the only ones really from an England point of view that's played this week and got anything out of it. Jack Leach got 6 wickets in a match, had a decent bowl. Chris Wokes played in a good win for Warwickshire. No batters of such got any runs. Quite a few of them weren't playing. Some of them are in the IPL. I think, if anything, the week was better for Australia in English conditions than it was for England, because not many, other than Ollie Robinson, not many played. And Marnus Labuschagne looks as though, I think we all England fans hope that he's using them up, because 65 in the first and 170 in the second. I watched some of that stream, and he could have batted all day, and there was no chance of getting him out.
He's one of those guys. Once he gets in there, he's I call him arthritis. Once he gets in a joint, you can never get him out. And that's pretty much where he'd like to be. Marnus Labuschagne batting at number 3 for Australia. I mean, we've run out of time. Great to chat again this week. Look forward to doing it all again next week.
Absolute pleasure, Matt.
Good on you, Steve Harmison, joining us there. Under sufferance too, I might add. Very good effort to get up early in an English morning after a strong celebration last evening. A tick in the right box, commending your ability to stay as part of the team, Harmy. Good work.
Thanks, my friend.
Good on you, Steve Harmison, joining us there. This has been Road to the Ashes. Simon O'Donnell, Steve Harmison, been with you over the last period. It's been a lot of fun talking to Adam Gilchrist and reliving the 05 Ashes and the 6-7 Ashes here in Australia. Absolutely brilliant stuff from those guys. If you have a question for us at any stage, you can tweet us at SEN Cricket or at Talk Sport or cricket_TS. Now, we'll be both back next week, thanks to Australian Made. Look for the green and gold kangaroo.